Hello, and welcome to this talk about free and open source virtual reality and augmented reality. My name is Jacob Bonnekrantz. I currently work for Collabora, and I do basically open source XR. And what I'm going to talk about now is basically explain a little bit what AR and VR are, a little bit about OpenXR, about Monado, the project that we started, the status of it, and show a little bit of demos, and then wrap the whole thing up. Yeah. So, what is AR and VR? As you can see, augment, it's like adding things, making things better. So, one of the things that probably most of you have run into or seen is Pokemon Go, where you can sort of place Pikachu or any other Pokemon in the world, and that's AR. You add something to the thing, and you give it a new experience or things like that. But it can also be used for other things, not just games, but also working things. So this is a DAC headset, and I'm going to explain a little about the setup. So the guy you see in this sort of a video call is sitting somewhere else, and the operator that's wearing the headset is streaming what he sees to that guy in the headset. So the operator can see, and it can also then draw or highlight things. So if you see that little, let's see, that ring there, that is actually not something I scribbled on. It's what the operator scribbled on and told him to say, pull this hard disk, or tighten that screw. So exactly like how I highlighted this with the pointer, he can highlight things in the real world. So that's actually a very powerful thing that you can do with AR, and it's not just games. So what is virtual reality? I really like this quote. I thought at first, but it was actually made by Adam Savage, but it's actually from a video or a movie, and you might have heard it. I react to reality and substitute my own, which is kind of what virtual reality is. You just replace everything, but often what you think is a VR headset, and you just see things. But it can be a lot more than that. But I'm gonna limit myself to that definition. And of course, as you might know, games where you play and you have different experience. But by that definition, where you have replaced the whole reality, there's also this is also by that technical definition, I would say, this is also virtual reality, because even though it's a limited experience, it still completely replaced all reality, sort of saying. So it's kind of like how you can see it. Everything is replaced. So what do you get when you add AR and VR together, or how can you talk about it? And that's sort of where XR come in. Is everything that's in there, and it's not extended reality. It's X is replaced for either augmented or VR. So I'm going to talk a little bit about OpenXR. How do we do XR? Kind of have this very simplified stack. You have your program, you have some sort of platform that program runs on, and you have hardware underneath. So the platform sort of extracts it. And to have the program to talk to the platform, you need an API. And in the past, and sort of how history has repeated itself, there's various different APIs. Kind of like the picture to the left here, where everybody has their own thing, and everybody, if they want to support everything, they have to write multiple APIs. It's not a good situation. But where OpenXR comes in is that there's a royalty-free, collaborative API that everybody can implement. And, you only have to write code once, and then you can support a wide variety of platforms and hardware. So what's so cool about OpenXR? It's kind of just like OpenGL or Vulkan. It's made by Kronos. It's open in that sense, and as I said, everybody can implement it. It's actually out now. it's action-based, and I'll go a little bit into that. And there is no open source implementation for it, which is us. So one thing that is kind of hard when you're targeting different platforms, or every controller looks a bit different. I can remember like GameCube controller or Xbox controller, or those look a bit different. So instead of the programmer going, I have an Xbox controller and I, just get the inputs like X button or pressed, they instead give context to the program. So you say, I have an action, and that is teleport. And then they say, you might want to bind that to trigger button on this type of controller, and you might want to bind it to A button on this type of controller. But the runtime is ultimately decides what actually goes into that, and the runtime I have then has a lot more context to understand what the application is doing, and also they can show that to the user either before or during runtime, where you can more easily remap. So you can see like shoot arrow or shoot cannon button or action, and you can remap that to a button. Say you have you have a twitchy finger or something, and you want to just move it to another button, or your controller the controller you have doesn't actually match what the developers are running on it. So the default mapping might not be the best for you. So I think that's like the second best thing of OpenXR. Either the first is being it's open, and the second is just that it's action based and it abstracts inputs in a completely new way. That is, I think, is a big step up from just getting the buttons and then the game have to do all the mapping themselves. So I'll talk a little bit about Monado. Again, how do we XR? You have your program, your platform, and your hardware. Monado is the platform. To go expand up on this a little bit, this is kind of a highest level diagram of what Monado is. So all of the purple bits are Monado. We have our own compositor, so not to be confused by a Wayland compositor or a X compositor. It's a compositor that takes what the game has rendered and turns them into something that looks good on the screen, because you often have a whole bunch of lenses. You can have even kind of mirrors for AR devices, and it's just dealing with taking care of all of the nitty-gritty bits of basically advanced optics and physics of how to turn photons into something that looks good in the eye. And you have a couple of drivers, and you sort of have this platform core on the side, and on top of it you have the OpenXR Stack Tracker, which, if you're familiar to Mesa and Gallium, how that is built up is basically built around the same principle, but now we also have the compositor and the platform sort of in that package. So it's not just drivers. So it's probably very familiar to Mesa developers and the graphics people. But it's a slightly more complex thing, and you have part of Monado. There's a whole bunch of accelerator libraries, and those are, we try to extract things from drivers. So drivers mostly about bit twiddlings, the things that come from the hardware, and then just taking components and building up a functional system. The compositor is quite large. There's a wrapper around it, and all those things. So another one, slightly more complex, but still scaled down, so you have to get the feel of how it all fits together. You might notice a couple of things that says XRT underscore and something there. Those are sort of the interfaces. I'm going to talk a bit about more on later. And something that we have in the future is we're going to put an IPC layer, so we can just have one compositor or daemon, or run all of the drivers in one process, and then clients can connect to them from outside. So then I can keep running, and you can switch games or switch things that you run on top of it. So you can run, for instance, if you heard of the XR desktop project, You can run that at the same time you're running games and things like that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the whole all XRT underscore things that you were seeing in the diagrams. So basically those are interfaces that kind of similar to the Gallium interfaces. It's pure C, so all nice and that. It's not stable, so it's all internal interfaces, just like the internal interfaces of the kernel and the internal interfaces of the Gallium drivers. So the basic thing we start with is the XRT device. So it's for both control HMDs and controllers. It has sort of an aspect pattern, if you ever heard that, where instead of having a inheritance structures, we have side struct that you kind of allocate and point to. So a device, when I designed this interface, I figured that some devices might actually have cameras and some might not, and some might have an, how do you deal with, I have a controller with a camera, or I have a controller that not has a camera, and I can, the inheritance structure does become, that pattern isn't good, so instead we have these aspects that you add to it. There's functions on, getting input, setting output, like making it vibrate, and then there's a whole bunch of information there on like how the compositor should drive the pixels to the screen that's on the device. Then there's a compositor. This, on the other hand, has base class and then specialization on top of it. There's some glue code for being able to support both GL and Vulkan interfaces. Then there's this real compositor, and they talk between each other with FDs, DMA buffs. And then this all basically is just a mirroring of the OpenXR interface functions that you can look up in the registry and see sort of how they map up. Then we have the prober, which is sort of here's everything that goes that's not anything else, but we need to glue together, or we need to, how do we find devices, how, take care of platform code, and sort of a glue, WinSys, and everything is just, and policy holder, just stick it all together. So where are we? We are mostly complete with OpenXR. We have currently only an in-process compositor. We're hoping to do that soon, so we can run multiple programs at the same time. We have sort of built up a video processing framework, and I will kind of show that later on. We can track these PS Move controllers. And we're working on improving that as well. We have a really nifty debug UI as well, and I'll show that off. We support multiple hardwares natively, and we also have the Northstar and Daydream controller we have on our branches, but we also have the OS3 SDK, drivers of Vive Pro and Index. We have an experimental branch for positional tracking of those through the LiveSurvive project. We support PlayStation VR and Move, the Razer Hydras, and we also have a wrap around OpenHMD, so we can use all of those drivers that are there, sort of to make sure that nothing gets left behind. In terms of code, I thought it was a little bit fun, so 35K of lines of code. You can see one driver is between 500 lines or 1,500, so we have extracted, I think, a lot of what goes into the driver out of it, and you can see sort of all of the heavy stuff is outside of the driver. So it's writing a driver is not really hard once you understand the bits. So it's all the reverse engineering, and then the other hard parts are tracking and math that goes around it. So but those are in sort of a helper library. So this is what Monado actually gives you. We are hoping, or planning on sort of the short-term roadmap is finishing up the OpenXR support to be fully conformant, improve the tracking, add PSVR tracking, and the auto process compositor. But that's kind of just what we want to do. But if anybody wants to do anything else, you know, they can do it on their own. So, and also we haven't, how to call it, called dibs on any of things. So if you think, oh, I really wanted to do that, you just talk to us, and we can help you out. So yeah, it's just kind of our own plans. Even further out, like how do we do all the things that sort of Steam, if you have ever tried Steam VR, they have their own system UI, setup UI, the sort of safe space that you come back to if the game crashes, incorporating lighthouse tracking, and also looking into AR and SLAM tracking. Oh, so, a couple of demos. Pray to the demo gods, first and foremost. So I will start off by showing just basic tracking. And the cool part, I won't turn this to you guys, so I don't accidentally film you. So this is just basic 2 webcams, a stereo webcam, which is the best tracking. It's sort of available for everybody. I will. No, of course. Speak of the demo gods. I don't know. Yay. So this is not actually showing from inside, it's showing sort of running in what we call headless, but it's more easier to understand. So you can see the both 2 controllers here, I'm over around them. We're work in progress and all that. You can see it's a little bit jittery, but you can see it's actually, some of them are quite jittery, and I will actually then show off the debug UI for this. So this is our cool nifty debug UI, and I can sort of explain what's going on. So this is what the camera is seeing. It's very short exposure. I can turn it off to show what is actually showing. So, hey. So you can see the exposure is very short, but then the balls overexposure, so I actually can't tell them apart now. But if I lower it again, you can see there's one is red and one is purple. And then I can also see the filter. So you can see this is the red filter, and you can see there's a bit of a noise from that one, a little bit. So what I know why that is, so that's because the white balance is off, and now there's no no noise on that, so it's just picking up this thing, and it's fed into the trackers, and they show where the ball is in this drawing, and it's finding the ball. It's kind of a bit hard, but yeah. So yeah. So that's sort of where we are on that. It's also what I have been doing. Christoph had a nice talk where he showed off the lips of voice tracking in his talk with about doing game development. And yeah, that is it for demos. A little bit of rants. If I hot plug non-desktop displays, GNOME Shell really likes to reorder all my windows, so that's super annoying. So if there are any GNOME developers, please look into that. Because yeah, I usually plug in and plug out HMDs, and Intel gets a special call out because we're using a extension that's not available on Intel to interrupt between OpenGL and our compositor. Yeah, that sucks. Yeah, there's lots of work. I actually had the same status page already in October, and sort of, are we actually doing anything? And yes, tracking is just really hard to do. And we sort of just now actually have some improvements on the move tracker. We couldn't get it in right now, and we have made some progress on the PS3 tracking. It just takes a lot of time. And like, how do we do settings? I think that do we, is GNOME interested to make their own UI? Do we have to make our own UI for it? Yeah, and we're also like really interested in building up a FOSS community, not just for private developers, but also higher up in the stack. But our focus is there. But we have last year we had the first FOSDEM conference, and we're planning to have one this year as well. So the link there is to the FOSDEM Twitter account. We'll tell you when we actually know when it's probably be in Amsterdam around BlenderConf. So a whole bunch of links. I can, once I actually manage to get it up. We do actually have both internships for XR stuff. So if you're interested in this and you're finishing up your studies and looking for internships, definitely go into the link. And there's also regular job postings. But if you're also, I don't think we have anything specific for XR there, but I do think you should send you in your CV anyways, or you talk to me if you're interested in it. Yeah, and there's also all the other pages for Monado and OpenXR and sort of going on. And if you see me, come after the talk or ask questions, because I apparently blew through all the slides and I didn't think it would go that fast. So yeah, talk to me about just about anything. VR, my own little programming, Amigas, voxels, yeah, just everything, and especially about joining Collabora. So thank you very much, and any questions, because we have lots of time. Yeah. Yes. You mean so Oculus actually do? Yes, they have shipped. Okay, sorry. When do we see more vendor support for OpenXR? Microsoft was one of their first ones that shipped out support there, so they are there. Oculus has also shipped out support on their desktop, I think, yes. And there's also us. But yeah, more of them are coming. Steam, Valve has their Valve time, so I can't really comment on them when they want to do it. But hopefully at some point. So I mean, and they are in the working group, so definitely are interested in it. So yeah, but it's still slightly early, but there's definitely a shift, and I think all of the main players are on board. So yeah, soon TM or Valve time soon, but they already are out there, and people can use it. Yes.
Could you please elaborate on the defragmentation layout, the slide?
Okay, sure. Click. Okay. So in the past, yes. Oh, sorry. So can you comment on the defragmentations? Sure. So in the past, everybody had their own API. Oculus had their own API. SteamVR had OpenVR. Samsung and Daydream, and and we even open source community had their own API with OpenHMD, and most applications voted either to just OpenVR and maybe Oculus, or there was some Windows stuff there, but and we have all the Android applications, so yeah, you couldn't really, especially for us in open source, nobody wrote to OpenHND, unless it was a crazy open source guy. So it wasn't really an ideal picture. So what OpenXR gives us is that there's one API and you can make portable application. The API, I would say, is slightly more complex than, say, OpenVR, but OpenXR also handles a lot more types of devices and sort of is future-proof. Its current sort of target is just VR, but it's definitely designed with AR and all of the knowledge that, say, Windows doing on HoloLens doing AR stuff actually know. So it's ready for it, and as time goes on, we will release extension and then update the core, just like OpenGL does, where you had one, the first one, which didn't even have textures, and then you have version 2, which had shaders, and then more shaders, built up. So just like that, OpenXR will be built up. That's going on as we go along. Yes.
Do you have any knowledge or something that you can talk about the device plugin?
It's not there yet. There's probably we'll have a face-to-face next week, and there'll probably be discussion about it. But it's designed by committee. For all it's takes a long time, and everybody has to agree. But it also work through things slowly. So yeah, there's definitely a will for it, and it will probably at some point show up, hopefully. But in the meantime, you can write Monado drivers, and you will support OpenXR that way. So yeah. Next question. Yes.
No. Say you have a device that is not powered by HDMI or something, but expects the stream, compressed stream to be sent to it.
Yes. About devices that doesn't plug into a DisplayPort or HDMI or anything like that. Sure. Monado is modular, so we definitely thought about replacing the compositor, instead sending it to, say, an encoder, and just sending it over the Wi-Fi or 5G or, say, a USB link, which is basically what Oculus Link is. So there's definitely, if we had infinite amount of time and infinite amount of code monkeys, we would do it because it's fun and it's a cool feature to have. But priorities and just getting over the initial hump of what you want to do. So it's open, and everybody can hack on it. So if you think that's fun, Internet user, please come and talk and hack on it, and then you can have everybody can have it. And that's sort of the power of open source. Yeah. Next question. All right. Actually one.
More a political question.
Sure, that's okay.
So, regarding OpenXR, how willing are, let's say, Oculus and Steam VR to actually open the interface? I mean, how proprietary are existing interfaces, and how willing are companies to make it open?
How do I?
Can you even say that?
Yeah. OpenXR was started by, I think, Valve, Epic, Unity, Oculus. So they were on there from the beginning. Microsoft joined after a while, and that was sort of like, we all shared because we didn't really think that, but Microsoft have been the one that has actually been pushing it most, I would say. So they were there at the start, but yeah, I think so everybody's fine with opening, the front layer, the thing that application writes to, because that's actually solving a problem for them, where, Unreal game developers, I don't want to target all of these APIs, I just want one, and then, okay, we just have to solve that problem. Everything that goes on behind is that's their IP and all of it locked down and stuff like that. But yeah, and there's probably content protection as well behind the scenes as well. So, but the front part they're all they're very open to, and they are releasing runtimes, OpenXR runtimes that people can use. So, yeah. Yeah. But that's where Monado comes in. So we, completely open source stack that you don't have to do anything like that. And we do have to then reverse engineer the, say, hardware and figure out what actually, what the bits do that we're getting from the device, and we have to do all of the complex math to do the tracking and, SLAM tracking. There's tons of university research and, spending a lot of time. So it's always a question of resources that we have that we can do. I mean, we want to do everything, and our primary goal is to make sure that when the AR revolution comes, open source has a solution, and also provide you a platform to do also VR as well. So, and everything, like political questions and things like that, that's fine. Just keep asking anything, even remotely related to XR. That's okay. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you very much. And